right, from Jerusalem, we now head over to Kabul in Afghanistan. Our reporters are covering the ongoing Afghan conflict there. We're joined by Daniele Pagani, WION's international correspondent on the ground, chasing the stories there. All of this coming on the brinks of when a U.S. convoy carrying both U.S. and Afghan personnel was attacked by a bomb in the Nangarhar province. Here's the report.
Nangarhar is a small province in eastern Afghanistan. It is here that the United States Army launched the so-called mother of all bombs. Nangarhar is now an active front line. The Afghan army is fighting on the ground alongside the American troops. On June the 12th, a convoy of Afghan and American soldiers was ambushed. A roadside bomb blocked their advance and then a commando attacked. According to coalition sources, there have been no American casualties. Atahullah Godani, the governor's spokesperson, said that 3 civilians died during the exchange of fire. The Islamic State of Khorasan has its headquarters in the Nangarhar province, which is also not immune from Taliban infiltration and influence. And it was on June the 10th that during a joint United States and Afghan operation, an Afghan army commando opened fire against United States troops and killed 3 soldiers. Official sources have not released the specific details on the matter, but the Taliban were very quick in claiming responsibility for the attack. The Islamic State of Khorasan controls the Achin district, which is a mountain area on the border with Pakistan. It is a natural fortress, militarily very difficult to penetrate from the ground. US sources believe that the terror outfit can count on an average of 700 active soldiers fighting for the Islamic State.
حالی که عملیات کردیم اینا دیگه ما جاگزینی نداریم که در اینجا او را ببانیم یک بیز بسازیم که دیگه گروه داعش از این منطقه استفاده کرده نتوانه و تصفیه میکنیم، تلاشی میکنیم، تعرض میکنیم، اونا را به کوه فرار میدیم، مگر بعدا ما مجبور هستیم که این قوه خود جمع کنیم به یک جای دیگه برویم.
The Afghan army is fighting on the very front line, but they suffer a lack of up-to-standard equipment. United States troops have always been a target in Afghanistan, where many see them as invaders and disruptors, but after 2 years of relative calm, attacks against them have increased. The small eastern province of Nangarhar has become one of the most dangerous places in Afghanistan. United States troops on the ground have to watch their back, both from the Islamic State, the organization has its headquarters in Nangarhar province, and also from possible infiltration of the Taliban within the Afghan National Army, which are their main ally on the ground. It doesn't seem that coming back to Afghanistan is going to be an easy game for the United States troop. Daniele Pagani from Kabul for WION.
All right, let's go straight to Daniele Pagani. They're on the ground getting us the very latest there. Daniele, let me first start off by asking you, are U.S. soldiers there under more vulnerability given what's happened on Saturday and this recent bomb blast that happened at the envoy with Afghan and U.S. personnel? Is there more of an attack now for U.S. troops there?
Well, we have to make it very clear that the United States Army has been a target in Afghanistan for the past, I would say, 16 years. But yes, undeniably, in these last, I would say, 4 to 5 months, the attacks against them, directed directly against them, have definitely increased. And this is also because there is a sort of renewed activism of the American soldiers which are replacing themselves, and also because President Donald Trump, as we have many times said, is now thinking of sending 3,000 to 5,000 more soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan. The Taliban are on the offensive, the Islamic State is on the offensive, so obviously, given the situation, they will try to upscale the game against the United States forces, which will have now to watch their back more closely than what they have been doing in the last 2 years, where attacks against them were pretty rare.
All right, Daniele, what about just the mood there in Kabul, though? In terms of, we spoke earlier, you said that, how is it? Has it changed since since what we've been seeing in the media? Is Is it how dangerous as it's perceived to be? What's the mood like there on the ground in general, especially as a journalist covering stories like this?
Well, Kabul in this moment is relatively calm. There has been just a wave of attacks starting from May the 31st, and then the funerals, and then the protests. So in these days, the city is pretty calm. But the problem is that these tents, which are now all around the cities, and they welcome protesters every day, are silent, not very crowded, but potentially Kabul is a place where it is full of weapons and full of informal political militias. And the atmosphere that one breathes around the city is of very heavy mistrust and discontent towards the government and toward President Ghani, who is not perceived as a good leader. Not him, but not also the so-called CEO of Afghanistan, President Abdullah. The two major offices are sort of sharing the government of the country, and these led to a sort of paralysis. Also speaking with several middle-class Afghans, they all say that right now is worse. Economically speaking, the situation is worse than 2 years ago. And of course, there is, I would say, all the people that I talk to have a lot of mistrust in the Americans. They are very worried about the fact that the Americans are sending in more troops, and it's really, really strong. The anti-United States sentiment among the people, at least among the people that I met, which are many, it's hard to find someone who thanks the United States for their presence in Afghanistan, and it's easier to find people who consider them the beginning of the end of their country. So this is going to
also give us sort of a perspective, a lay of the land of some of the big areas there in Nangahar. That was the same place where the U.S. dropped the MOAB, the mother of all bombs, a few months ago, and the same place where U.S. troops are being targeted. Is that the area typically that we're seeing more of an attack on military members?
So look, the Nangarhar province, of course, is not the only province where there is an active front line. Unfortunately, the Taliban control at least 40% of the country, and along all the borders that they control, they're trying to push. So they're trying to conquer more territory. But Nangarhar has definitely become one of the most dangerous places. The Islamic State of Khorasan has established the headquarters on the mountain areas close to the district of Achin, which is virtually a place that is impossible to conquer militarily speaking from the ground. It's a very high mountain area, very protected, and it is there that the United States launched the mother of all bombs. So yes, definitely that is going to be one of the hottest places when it comes to conflict in Afghanistan for at least the months to come.
Daniel, let me also ask you, a question with regards to the U.S.'s the pursuit about the troops. There's been a withdrawal with some troops, still about a good several thousand troops from the U.S. in Afghanistan, trying to get rid of Islamic extremists, trying to fight the Taliban and other terror groups. Perhaps with these sort of retaliation efforts, do we perhaps anticipate more involvement by the U.S. advancing to eradicate the violence and terrorism in general there?
Well, of course, it's a little bit out of my knowledge, but let's walk on the path of speculation. I would say, of course. I don't see any other way for the United States right now, if not the one that means, sending more troops and trying to find out how to solve the situation. See, Afghanistan has been at war for 4 decades, but the Americans came here 16 years later, and they say that now they are at a stalemate. I wouldn't call it like that. I would call that they are actually losing ground. They are losing trust. And the solution would be sending maybe more advisors, but also helping the Afghan national forces. I had a meeting with the general of the Afghan army yesterday, an informal meeting, and we were talking about the situation of the army, and he very much complained about the lack of up-to-standard equipment that the Afghan soldiers who are fighting on the very front line are facing. So perhaps that is another way to do. But yes, Archie, I don't see any other way other than sending more troops and upscaling the military game in Afghanistan if the United States are willing to militarily win.
All right, Daniele, lastly, just recently, this attack on the envoy, a man and 2 sons, civilians, unfortunately, in the line of fire, killed by U.S. troops, according to many media reports. Unfortunately, it is the civilians, the innocent lives who are lost in war in situations like this. The ground mood, the ground sentiment. What are the people of Afghanistan saying? You've been there for a few days now. What's the sentiment like? What are they chatting about? Are they hoping this will end and Is there hope in sight for them?
No, unfortunately, what one perceives is a very very big lack of hope also. And these kind of civilian people killed in exchange of fire between the military and insurgents is a sort of a gift to the propaganda of the Taliban, because of course we all know that if the roadside bomb wasn't there in the first place, nothing would have happened. But unfortunately, the people will see that a man who was working and his two young sons got killed by the Americans who were firing to protect themselves at an indefinite target. So frustration is increasing. It's very much easy to feel and to hear around the street of Kabul critiques against the United States, saying that they have been in the country for 16 years, they didn't solve any problem, they are bombing and killing Afghan people. And now that we see an incident like this with 3 civilians dying, it's obviously the frustration is going to increase, is going to upscale more.
All right, and really quickly, Daniele, the relationship, India and Afghanistan, where are we seeing that relationship, especially going forward with the Modi era? Are they getting better? Do we expect more turmoil? Where do we see that?
So 2 days ago, I had a meeting with the Indian ambassador in Kabul. We had a long conversation about the role of India in Afghanistan. He is very confident the situation is going very well, it's very smooth. Of course, the security alert for the Indian people living here and the Indian military personnel protecting the Indian premises has been increased but the Indian ambassador said that all the investment that India has are very well protected right now, and he doesn't see any problem between the two nations so far. I also asked him if he knew anything about the rumor of a possible deployment of 15,000 Indian soldiers under the banner of the United States in Afghanistan, and he clearly said that there is no official talk between the governments of Afghanistan and the government of India about this. So probably it is only a diplomatic rumor. But overall, the relations are good. India is investing. They invested 2 billion, on top of that, 3 billion in Afghanistan, and they are willing to keep investing here.
All right, Daniele Pagani getting us the very latest here from Kabul. We appreciate all of those inputs and updates. Thank you, Daniele.